Welcome to Red Zone Sports. I mean, that was an interesting intro.
Just had to bring it back with the drum intro.
I thought I was logging into a game of like Rocket League or something. Like that was some
yeah.
Japanese techno shit right there.
I thought that I was still
battle cry.
Thought I was still watching the American Gladiators documentary that I was watching earlier.
Gotta get pumped up with the little drum beat leading into battle.
I would have dressed differently if I knew that intro was coming.
So awesome.
All right, guys. Well, that's that. We'll see if that lasts till next week. But so we got the NFL starting in 8 weeks. So what we decided to do is we're going to do one show per week when we're going to break down every single division in the NFL based off of offensive firepower. So week by week, we're going to start with the AFC. We're going to be in the AFC West today. We've decided that we're going to do kind of a countdown model where we go 4, 3, 2, 1 from the worst offensive firepower team. We'll kind of go through every player, 3, 2, 1, etc. So, guys, I'm pretty excited to get into this. I mean, there's not much out there, right? Training camp is barely even
starting a few days.
So we're barely there. Mini camps have been kind of going on. There's not really any training camps. There's not much news out there. A lot of stuff can happen here, but it's time to start getting really excited. We're in that 60-day window. So I'm fired up to get this podcast going and start talking some players and see kind of what direction we're going to go this season. So
real football.
Real football is here finally. And we're going to start it off with Team 4 in the AFC West. And I'm just going to say it. And it's my team. Offensive firepower. I actually think they're going to be better than most people think this year, but I'm biased. But offensive firepower-wise in this division, they are the worst team. And we're going to kind of go through their roster and players that we like, players that we don't like, what do we not like about the offense, etc. So, Jimmy, I'm going to lead off with you here. Kind of like, what are you seeing about what you do like about this Raiders offense when it comes to DFS fantasy firepower?
Well, first and foremost, being a former Jimmy G supporter, we got to help the Jimmy G stays healthy, because if he doesn't stay healthy, then the bathwater is basically playing quarterback for the Raiders. They got, a guy to back up Jimmy that is a bad Derek Carr lookalike, doppelganger, if you will. And he's a rookie, and Aiden O'Connell, I'm sure he did some good things at Purdue. He's a decent quarterback, but look, everything for the Raiders fantasy-wise hinges on Jimmy staying healthy. Now, he's going to start the season healthy, so from a DFS perspective, I'm going to be all about Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs very early on. I'm very high on Josh Jacobs. Everyone seems to have forgotten what a successful year he had last year. I guess they're worried about this, fake holdout rumor that apparently was going to happen but didn't happen. So I guess we can just get by.
He still hasn't signed the franchise tag.
He hasn't, but he's going to. Okay, he's not pulling a Saquon and coming out and saying, I want this big extension, blah 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 blah. He just doesn't want to go to training camp, which is fine. That's totally cool, right? So I think that there's a couple of good pieces. I like the fact that Waller is now gone. The offense is just so concentrated around Devontae and Josh Jacobs that it makes it really easy from a prediction standpoint to know where the lion's share of the production is going to come from. So from that standpoint, I really like the Raiders. They're obviously in a very tough division. They're likely going to be in quite a bit of shootouts. I like the Jacoby Myers pickup. Personally, I know that everyone's kind of in love with Hunter Renfrow. I like Renfrow as well, but Jacoby Myers is a guy that's going to be out there basically every snap. Raiders did get rid of Joey's favorite player. I won't even mention his name, but Joey's probably very happy that he's gone.
I'm very happy he's gone. Everything this Raiders regime has done on the front office is nothing but positives for me. No Matt Collins, no Derek Carr, not signing a running back to a huge extension. I mean, this is all positive stuff.
So the question begs, Joe, I'll shoot it to you just real quick. I don't want to get hung up on this. Do you think that from a season-long perspective that Davante Adams and Josh Jacobs can be viable fantasy players, or are very early on the Raiders going to be in the tank for Williams camp?
No, I think they're going to try to win, especially if Jimmy's under center. I think the problem is with this offense, they've actually kind of built the exact offense that Josh McDaniels wants. Jimmy G, he's gonna spread it around, right? He's going to take his chances. But you look at these guys they have on their team; they're all some of the best route runners in the league, and that's Davante Adams, Jacoby Myers, and Hunter Renfrow. What they're going to have is a lot of short yardage throws and a lot of yak. So, but the problem is, I think this is going to be very spread out. Like last year, Derek Carr was just peppering Davante Adams. I don't think Davante Adams has as big of a statistical year because the ball is actually to get spread around. I think Michael Mayer is going to be a force over the middle. He's going to be a mismatch. He's not going to be a big play guy. But again, they're going to just be chomping at that 5-yard throws all day long. And I think it's a great thing for winning. For fantasy football, it makes it extremely tough to pinpoint week by week with this team. I think you're going to have games where Davante has 10 catches. Then you're going to have Jacoby 10 catches, Hunter 10 catches, and it's going to be spread around based on what the defense is giving them, and that's exactly what they want. So I'll pass the ball to Vinny here. Vinny, what do you think about this team, and what are your favorite players to go to?
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I mean, I think, the big concern for me comes down to, again, Garoppolo's health, right, which should be at the top of everybody's concern. When you're looking at it from a season perspective, that's why I can't go too far in on Davante, just because if Garoppolo goes down somewhat even early in the season, like Davante is going to be significantly impacted, right? And so will Jacobs, because the passing game is going to be bad. Therefore, they're going to stack the box on them and make it very difficult for this offense to move. So I'm with you. I think Michael Mayer is a great addition. He was arguably the best tight end in the draft. They got him in the second round. He's going to be an impact guy day one. I do think the offensive line is pretty concerning, though. Like, outside of Colton Miller, it's not a great group. And
a problem.
For a quarterback that gets injured, he better be getting that ball out quick, to your point.
I think it's going to be all ball out quick, and that's our problem.
And if that's the case, but, Garoppolo can definitely move that offense in that type of offense. But, again, if he gets down or he goes down, they're in a heap of trouble very quickly. And I know you can say that about every team, but, like, this team doesn't have much margin for error in terms of depth,
So I think that when you're looking at the Raiders, you really need the biggest concern for me from offensive line is the interior line. Mm-hmm. I actually think that the right tackle, I'm going to butcher the fuck out of his name. It's like Illuminor. We're just going to call him Illuminor.
That's it. Like that.
I don't think, I don't think he's that bad. He's in the top 20 rated tackles in the NFL. I don't think he's that bad. I think the interior pressure is a problem. We've seen watching Jimmy G that he does not deal with interior pressure very well. He with rushes from the outside where he can step up into a pocket. He learned from Tom Brady everything that he could. So he does move well when he can step up into the pocket. When he cannot, it's very difficult for him to roll out and get set again and then throw. That's where he throws a lot of his interceptions just because he doesn't have the arm strength. He tries to do the crossbody thing. It just doesn't work, right? So, I think that, the biggest concern really is that the Raiders defense is just, aside from Max Crosby and Shelley out there at corner, it's really, really bad. They've got no interior pressure. I mean, Jerry Tillery playing next to Max Crosby is not doing Max any favors. He's not a threat. Max just going to get constantly double teamed, right? They don't. I mean, they have maybe one of the worst. Let's see what's his PFF ranking. Yeah, pretty much one of the worst linebackers in Masterson lining up in the entire NFL. Here, but look, like, this is going to bleed over into the offense. So, like, the one guy I really like in Josh Jacobs, they're going to have to just get away from the run a lot in these games. Week 1 versus the Broncos. I mean, they're going to be throwing a lot. So, if Jimmy stays healthy, I like the Raiders throwing stacks. in DFS this year. I'll be playing him early just because, like I said, week 1, I think they're going to get their doors blown off. I mean, the overs, we've got a 44.5 over.
So this kind of leans into my biggest concern for them. I'm with you. I think this team's much better of a DFS type situation week to week than they are season long, because looking at their schedule, they go to Denver, then to Buffalo, Pittsburgh at home, to the Chargers. If they go 1-3, which is very possible, possibly 0-4, you're going to see Devontae, you're going to see Jacobs, you're going to see these guys get pissed off. And I think at that point, they have to consider the tank for Caleb. So just be aware of that in season long is my advice.
So let's transition to their week 1 opponent, who also happens to be in the AFC West.
Yep.
The Denver Broncos. I saw some pictures of Mr. Unlimited today.
Yep.
And he's looking pretty good. He doesn't look like me, chubby face, he look like he's had a few too many, donuts. Like, he looks slim.
Mr. Lean.
Mr. Unlimited Lean, right? He looks slim. He's healthy by all accounts, which I think is a really big thing. He's got a pretty complete offense, really, at this point. They're getting Tim Patrick back, who tore his ACL, I think, in week 1 or very early on, who's their wide receiver 3. They drafted Marvin Mims, who I really like as a player. We've got Dancing Rick out there, who Vinnie really just kept trying to make it happen, just like Fetch, and it just wasn't happening last year. But he is a good player. And then they've got my guy, who's going to be healthy, who I think is probably going to be one of the biggest breakouts this year, in Javonte Williams.
Yep.
If there's a betting market out there where you could bet comeback player of the year, this is a guy that I would like to do it with.
Javonte, just as a quick heads up, is probably my most owned running back in best ball right now. Like, I'm with you.
Close. He's close for me, just because where he's going right now in his ADP, people are worried about Samaje fucking Perine. Like,
No, I think people have it in their heads that Sean Payton, because of Drew Brees' all of his accolades, that the Sean Payton offense is pass first, and it's going to be this heavy pass regime. But we've watched over the years, he runs the shit out of the ball. He does like to rotate his running back, so I get the yardage standpoint and the carry standpoint, but Javonte will get every single carry inside the 5-yard line because he likes his bruising backs. I mean, look what he was doing with some of his bruising backs and with the Saints for a long time. Mark Ingram. Yeah. He literally just ran Mark Ingram inside the 5 every time and never gave the ball to Kamara. Right? So I could see Javonte getting 15-plus touchdowns this season. Easy.
The reason I'm really bullish on these guys, too, is Sean Payton is going to make them respectable week to week, unlike last year. And he's going to bring back kind of that Saints offense, right, which was a lot of play action type like scheme. And that is what Russ does well, And so this is set up really well for Russ to bounce back. Slim Russ, offensive line is upgraded. They've got Garrett Bowles back. I say what you will about Mike McGlinchey, but he can run block, And so I think this team is going to be set up to be pretty damn good, in my opinion. At least offensively, they're not going to be a complete embarrassment like last year,
Yeah, and I just don't think I think the play again is all through Javonte. I don't think the play is through Russ. Yeah, Russ can have a great season and all, but I think Sean Payton knows how to reserve his quarterbacks and not let them do dumb shit. Right. Sure. So he's gonna put Russ in great situations. Mm-hmm. He's not gonna let Russ throw the ball 40+ times. Right. Totally. Just like Vinny said, it's gonna be a huge play action offense. Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick, these guys are gonna have their touchdowns for sure. Yep. I don't see this being an offense. I mean, there might be a game or two here and there, but this offense being 35+ completions, the receivers are just going berserk like the Bengals, right? That's not what this offense is going to bring. They're going to rely on that solid defense that they have. Again, this is going to leak over in their offense. And why in the hell would they put Russ in a situation to throw picks, have fumbles, and ruin everything when they can just run the shit out of the ball and go play action mode and have the best defense in the NFL? So they're just not my favorite team when it comes to DFS or fantasy this year outside of Javonte.
Well, I think they're going to be pretty matchup dependent, right? Like we'll talk about the two other teams in this division, but in some of those games, like they're going to have no choice but to kind of speed things up and get going.
Chiefs,
But I'm with you, Joe. If they can control the game and they can control the clock, like they're going to be in a lot of position to win a lot of games. And I know you guys laugh at it, and I know you kind of said, he's legit, but I do have a lot of stock into Danson Rick so far. Like he's going to be a big part of the offense if they're going to be a play action type system. So
look, hand up. I've got a lot of Danson Rick in best ball. Okay, he's going very, very late,
super,
which is very strange. I play mostly on DraftKings, and it's very crucial that you stack your players on DraftKings because DraftKings has the bonus points for 300 plus yards, for 100 plus yards rushing, 100 plus yards receiving. So stacking those players together, you're just multiplying points in a single lineup together, right? And he's going so late that it makes it easy to do that with good old Danson Rick. There's not really any competition. That the Albert O kind of thing is kind of past them. They didn't really draft anybody else to challenge him. I mean, he's the guy, right?
Well, you just touched on something that's really interesting. It's like I think there's a lot of value with this team, especially in best ball. Like Russ is going late. Javonte slipped in because people are nervous about the injury. The only one that's going pretty high is Judy. And even like Sutton is, 5th, 6th round. I feel like you're seeing him in there. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think the biggest reason I think that Judy is going a little bit higher is because with Tim Patrick back, Judy's going to be able to play his traditional position in the slot, which is where he excels. He doesn't do great with the jams. He doesn't do great with getting off the ball. He plays better out of the slot where he can build up a little bit of speed. That's really his strength, right? He's a runner. Yep. So, last year, once Patrick got hurt, he was having to play the X position quite a bit. And, it really did hurt his production. He still had a decent year, but I think he's poised for a much better year this year and a much more complete offense. And that slot position is where Sean Payton likes to run a lot of those deep crossers, the seams down the middle, off play actions. I think Judy's going to be a very large benefactor of that.
Well, I think we're all in agreement. That's a pretty good bounce back spot and opportunity for the Broncos this year.
Well, we're going to have a little argument here who we think is number 2 and who's number 1 when it comes to fantasy firepower. I'm not saying the better team. We all know what that is. Fantasy firepower. I'm looking at the Chargers right now, and it's exciting.
They're loaded, man. They're
right?
absolutely
And you look
loaded.
at the Chiefs, it's also obviously exciting because you got Mahomes, the machine, right? And they got some guys that we're going to get some pretty low prices in DFS. But which one here is the better team with more firepower?
So, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jim.
It's still the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. They've got the number 1 quarterback. They've got the number 1 tight end. They've got a running back who, for whatever reason, everybody is just still sleeping on, even though I guess they didn't watch the last half of the year and then the Super Bowl as well. They've got a guy who they traded for at the trade deadline, who's a very, very dynamic player and who didn't really have any time to assimilate with the team, but still made impact plays, right away, right? And Kadarius Toney. So for me, until proven otherwise, it's going to be the Chiefs. They still have a high-powered offense. This whole narrative last year that, they can't win, they don't have Tyreek Hill anymore. Well, that kind of changed a little bit.
Yeah, no, and it's obviously not winning. Like we're all seeing Mahomes literally turn. By the end, he's probably gonna have the best NFL career of any quarterback in history, right? Again, I'm talking overall. I look at this Chargers depth chart on offense, and for fantasy, it's very exciting. But I get you, and I'm gonna go with you on that. So I want to talk Chargers. So we'll go Chiefs last. We'll put Chargers 2 right now. Just know that it's in debate in the world.
And real quick, the only thing I'll say is I think the Chargers are easier to stack and talk in terms of like fantasy. We talk about the Chiefs all the time. They're just so many guys, and it could be anyone's day at any given time. I think the Chargers is much more like consolidated between 4 or 5 guys. You know what I mean? So go ahead and go with it because I agree with you.
Yeah, so let's go with the Chargers. Just because honestly, I want to talk about them more. But you look at the Chargers, right, and you look how their offense runs. They're going to let Herbert throw the ball 55 times a game, and they don't give a shit, right? And that's no matter what. They're going to let
new offensive coordinator.
They're just going to let him spin. So yeah, and you got oh my God, why is his name dropping on me? Cowboys offensive coordinator
Kellen Moore.
So Kellen Moore has no problem hucking and chucking it on top of him already being that kind of quarterback. And then you're putting together guys like Austin Eckler, which I know he's very angry right now at the world, but the guy catches 10 plus balls a game and he'll go over like 150 all-purpose yards all the time. Like over 10 games a year, he does that. And then you got a receiver, you got Keenan Allen, which is a great possession receiver. If you're in a PPR type format, Keenan Allen's almost a lock all year long to get 80, 85 plus catches. Then you got Mike Williams, which that's your DFS guy, which he's going to have those games, those huge games, as long as he doesn't break his back this season. And then you got Quentin Johnston coming out of here from TCU. I mean, he is like, we saw guys like DeAndre Carter, which is a backup for the Raiders now, having games last year for the Chargers where now Quentin Johnston steps in there. This guy, I think, is actually probably the guy that's going to get Rookie of the Year just out of a pure stat production standpoint. So I just think they're in a great position to have these huge games, and they don't give a shit about giving up points, especially the teams like the Chiefs. They're going to be really fun games for DFS this year.
Yeah, man. And I think like Kellen Moore should really help Justin Herbert obviously develop a little bit more. And I think Kellen Moore is gunning for that head coaching job, right? Like if there's another bad season, like the Chargers are going to whack, the head coach. Like, but if the offense is excelling and Herbert's taking that next step, like Kellen Moore makes a lot of sense if he just got like the promotion mid-season or something, right? So yeah. I think he's going to be lighting it up, like you said. And the offensive line is really good there. They get Slater back at left tackle, who was like one of the best tackles in the league before he got hurt. Like this offense is set up, like you said. It would not shock me like multiple times this year if they are like the leading fantasy offense that week. You know what I mean? Like they have that potential every single time they take the field, and they're explosive as hell. So I'm with you. Quentin Johnston's a monster, dude. I think that guy is a legit, like in a year or two, number one receiver for someone. And that guy's right now the number 3 there. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think this is a good opportunity to now talk about Keenan Allen, who can go back to playing out of the slot, which is his preferred area and where he really excels, right? Again, Keenan Allen, especially now he's getting a little bit older, he doesn't play with press coverage well. He's not a pure burner that can just run past somebody, right? He's really, really, really super talented at the back shoulder throws, great hands, catches everything. I think he's gonna really relish playing back in his true area, right in the slot. I think he's going to do quite well this year. Especially on sites like DraftKings, or if you're playing in a PPR fantasy league, right? I think he's a guy that's going late enough as like a wide receiver 2 or 3, depending on, how big your league is, that I'm just fine taking. There's this whole narrative that like, oh, he's got an injury, he's injury prone. Like, go back and look at how many games he's missed over the entirety of his career, and it's not that much, right? Yeah. He always I think it comes from him popping up on the injury report basically every week, and he's not practicing, but he always plays. Right.
Yeah, so like it's the veteran non-practice thing at this point, though. The guy's a super crafty route runner. He's got some of the best hands in the league. He doesn't drop the damn ball. No. And he's just that guy on 3rd and 7 that you're looking for as a quarterback. And and no one's going to be double covering Keenan Allen with Quentin Johnston and Mike Williams playing on the outside and Eckler taking up linebackers.
Well, I was just going to say that
one-on-one all the time.
He's going to benefit being a supreme route runner, like over the middle, like just in the middle of the field with space to operate. Like I'm with you. I think he's going to catch, 80, 90 balls, no problem this year.
I also love this like narrative that I've heard going around that like, oh, because Kellen Moore's there, like, Eckler's production is going to go down. Like the dump offs don't change based on like what type of offense you're in. Those are not called plays. Those are just something
and still look at Tony Pollard with the Cowboys over the last couple of years. They just couldn't do it with Zeke because Zeke is not that player. Like they're still
100%.
Yeah, because Zeke had 15 bricks in his pants, like trying to run towards the end. Like can't use him on pass routes. So.
Yeah, Zeke's full of dust tacos.
Exactly. But I just find it odd that like people are like, oh well, Kellen Moore's gonna want to push the ball. I'm feeling like, okay, yeah, he is, but like they're still going to utilize maybe to one of the most athletic players on their team, and he's like maybe his catch rate goes down a little bit because if everybody stays healthy, okay, great, but like they didn't bring anybody in to really challenge him. The guys that they've drafted, and Isaiah Spiller and some other random guys, like they really haven't done anything. So like
Eckler's still the guy.
He's still the guy. And like, I mean, he's gone back up in ADP a little bit now looking at like my best balls, but for a while there, he was dropping like down into like the 11-12 hole. And like, there's a couple of drafts where I got him in the early second round and I'm like, whoa, what's happening here?
He's also a guy that's a potential upcoming free agent too, right? So like, he's going to be going hard for that big contract. I heard today, 100%. Which was a really good point somewhere on the radio, is like, he's a guy that was, because he was a late pick or undrafted, like he hasn't even been paid yet, right? Like he's kind of been screwed from the beginning. So if you think someone's going to ball out trying to go get that one big deal, he's got to be in the conversation as someone that you should.
Yeah, and he's one of the most talkative players right now in running back contracts. He's out to prove something.
Love it.
This whole team, I think you just can't go wrong. There's going to be weeks where we're going to have to pick our stacks, or have to leave somebody out and pray to God that it's not the way it goes. But like, this is one of the most exciting offenses to play in DFS on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, and I'm targeting them all over in best ball season long, and they will make most weeks stacks for me on DFS. So I'm with you.
Yep. All right, is it Chiefs time?
On to the champs.
It's Chiefs time.
Vinny, go ahead and lead us off here on the Chiefs.
So we kind of talked about it. It's not like they don't have talent, right? Like they've got arguably the best receiving person in the NFL in Travis Kelce, not just tight end. Like he might be wide receiver 1 if you really break down the stats. The receiver group is a mosh pit of guys. I'm with you. Kadarius Toney is super talented. MVS has his times. I think Sky Moore is in for a pretty good season. They said he's going to be starting out in the slot to start this year. They drafted Rashee Rice, who's another really good player out of college. And I think a pretty underrated signing. He's a guy that's always under the radar, but he's productive everywhere, is Richie James. He's gonna get in the mix there, dude, because I'm telling you, he's a reliable set of hands. He's a guy who's like gonna run the correct route. And I guarantee you watch, if some of these young guys screw up, Mahomes is going to start to gravitate to someone like that, who he just knows where he's going to be. He's going to like turn into the Juju of last year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I mean,
Richie James was productive with the Giants last year, man. I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
He's not a world beater player. He's not this great player, but
absolutely not. I'm not saying he's the best player in this division.
He's good enough, and he's pretty reliable. Again,
but I think he's a guy
your way. But like,
I think he's a guy like
he's the guy that's bare min, and you can crush.
Yeah, he's a bare min guy, or like in best ball, like take him with your last pick, your 18th pick, because like he's gonna get in the mix at some point. There, you could take him, or see MVS going like 7 rounds in front of him. It's like, I don't know about that, And
I can see MVS like kind of dropping off this year.
Well, that's why they drafted Rashee Rice. I mean, this is the last year of MVS's contract there. MVS just kind of has stone hands. It's why they got rid of Mecole Hardman as well. So, no more Mecole Hardman, which for the longest time, just like Vinny was trying to make it happen with Dancing Rick, I was trying to make the Hardman thing happen. Didn't really work out. So, as of right now, Scantling is their Y. Sky Moore is on the depth chart as the X, and Toney is the slot. Yep. So, that's that. So basically, the MVS doesn't play. He doesn't run block very well, so he doesn't play every single snap. So I really, really, really like the opportunity that Rashee Rice is coming into. I think he's an absolutely dynamic player. He's a bigger guy. He's kind of going to fill the Juju Smith-Schuster role for them, I think, as one of the more physical receivers. I think I'm really interested to see what kind of step that Sky Moore takes from year one to year two. You saw Sky Moore start to emerge towards the end of the year a little bit, right? And I think that's just a chemistry thing. I really enjoyed watching the Netflix series Quarterback, and Andy Reid specifically talking about Patrick Mahomes is how much time he puts in with his wide receiver group. He said he never saw anything like it before. So like that tells me that Patrick's not going to just stop doing that, right? Yeah. He built a new house with a goddamn 50-yard football field in his house so he could have guys over and fucking practice. If you haven't seen it, go look up Patrick Mahomes' new house. The thing is fucking sick. He's got a nice little par 3 on one side of the property. He's got, 40, 50-yard football field. He's got basketball courts. I mean, he set it up to have it be the workout place for the receiver group, right? In the off season, so they can fly there. People can hang out. He's got plenty of room to sleep. Like they're just all there, right? So
Andy Reid has come out and talked him up the last couple of days too. So
Sky Moore. I mean, they drafted him for a reason, and
second round, man.
And much like guys like Brandon Ayuk and some of these other wide receivers that year one, they just, for whatever reason, like you can see the flashes of talent that are there. And you can see that with Sky Moore. Yeah. It's just going to be, can he take that next step, right?
Yep.
So I think
I really like your call of Rashee Rice, because the last thing I'll say on that is, like, for someone who follows college and plays college DFS, and that's on it a lot, he was a freaking stud at SMU. Like,
dude,
just baller, stood out every single week. If he can get this offense, and pick it up, like, he's gonna be a player. Like, I'm with you. Like, I could see MVS getting kind of pushed out a little bit by Rashee Rice. So keep an eye on him for sure.
Yeah, so the early bets are Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, and the obvious Travis Kelce. You got Mahomes. MVS is going to be pushed out, and we think Rashee Rice is going to jump up on top of the depth chart in the first couple of weeks of the season. Yep. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It was definitely some growing pains for the Chiefs to start the year last year, and obviously, they turned it on. We'll see how fast they get out of the gates. So it'll be interesting to see, because they got some new guys in here, new faces.
And the other thing is, I mean, they have the third-ranked offensive line going into the season by PFF. Like, they're just loaded. And when you have Mahomes back there, dude, like, I mean, again, they're a 40-burger every Sunday potential, no matter who they're playing. I mean, they played the Niners last year, whose defense was, like, pretty much, you could not score on them, and they smoked the Niners.
Yeah, put up 44 points. So
it doesn't really matter who they're playing.
I mean, and if you look at their schedule too, we kind of talked about some of the other, AFC West opponents, but like I'm looking at their schedule toward the end of the year, it gets a little bit difficult, but right out of the gates, Lions, Jags, Bears, Jets, Vikings, Broncos got a good defense. Chargers, Broncos again. Dolphins. I mean, so most of their games, and the one guy that we're really not talking about a whole lot here is Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone still wants to draft Jerick McKinnon, but the fact of the matter is McKinnon is getting older. He was the focal point of some of that short area stuff because there wasn't anybody else. Now that Toney is there, and he is going to do some of that stuff, he's going to line up in the backfield, going to do some of the same kind of stuff that Debo does, right? They're going to do that with him. Pacheco emerged as a trustworthy running back that can just run the ball. He has breakaway speed. They're going to get him 14 to 18 carries a game. And when it comes down to the red zone, he's the bigger body. It's not going to be McKinnon, right? So I think Pacheco quite a bit.
I think the only thing people are worried about Pacheco, I'm not saying me, I'm saying people out there, are his surgeries that he's had over the offseason. He has 2 different surgeries that he's coming off of. This worries the shit out of people, but what is he, 22? Yeah, you guys bounce back from surgeries in like 6 weeks. So I'm telling the listeners and you guys, like, don't worry about those surgeries. Pacheco is going to be the guy right away.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a very good, very good run grade. He's got a very good catch grade or receiving grade. He can catch the ball. He's what Andy Reid wants, right? They've kind of lacked that every down back that can be out there. And they've kind of been doing this 2-back system. He's struggled a little bit with pass blocking, but I think he's got that figured out. And it shows, right? Because they played him a lot in the Super Bowl. I mean, and they were down. But they still kept him in there. And he played I think it was about a 60-40 split in the Super Bowl between him and McKinnon, right?
Yeah.
So, I think he's going way overlooked. I think he's one of those. There's a lot of running backs being drafted in like these like timeshare positions. He is in a timeshare, but I think by the end of the year, I think he's going to be the guy. And I think it's going to end up being like a 70-30 split by, mid-year.
Before we get out of here, who's your top sleeper in the division? Sleeper, obviously.
Sleeper player?
Not Travis Kelce. Yeah. Fantasy wise.
Joe? It's interesting. We talked about Rashee Rice. I think he's a good one. Man.
I have mine.
Yeah, go for it.
Go, Jim.
I think it's Sky Moore. I think Sky Moore could end up being by the end of the year a top 12 wide receiver in fantasy. If not, definitely a top 20 wide receiver. Solid wide receiver 2, upside of like a low end wide receiver 1. I think he takes a huge step year 2 just because of the environment that he's been in, and they haven't quit on him. They played him in the Super Bowl, caught a touchdown in the Super Bowl. The confidence for him should really be at an all-time level. He's dropped a couple of pounds as well. He's kind of really leaned out, put on a little bit of muscle. I think that Sky Moore is going to be my fantasy sleeper for the division.
Joe?
I'm going to go with Michael Mayer. I think he's going to be a top 5 tight end fantasy-wise at the end of the year.
Hey,
yeah. I mean,
top 5?
I think he's a potential 65 catch type guy, 700 yards and 6-7 touchdowns. I think he's got that potential. You got Austin Hooper as the other tight end. And like we said, that offense is going to be peppering the 5 to 10 yard range, 3-step drops. And again, he's just a huge body that can catch.
I'll agree with you on the touchdowns. I think he's going to have closer to like 40 catches, but that's fine. I think 7 to 9 touchdowns for him is very realistic. So I like that call.
He's no Dancing Rick, but I like that call. And I'll wrap it up. I think by the
he's a Dancing Rick.
Fucking Rick.
I think by week 2, Quentin Johnson's receiver 1 in LA. I think
it's like I think we have Vinny. I just want to say, like, you've had Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and then I think this is our next guy.
He just has all the makings. I mean, I was seeing mock drafts, and what I thought the Texans were going to do before they traded up to have the first and second pick was taking Johnston at 12 to be their like anchor receiver down there in Houston. But obviously the draft unfolded differently. But he's got all the makings as a big, strong, fast guy. And, Mike Williams and Keenan both have history of getting banged up like we talked about. Like, he could emerge and have a freaking monster year. So that's my call.
I like it.
All right. Well, that was a nice little look at the AFC West. I like it.
Yeah. So we're going to wrap it up and join us next week. We're going to get to our next AFC division. We'll keep that a little secret until later. We'll post it on Twitter beforehand. And,